Hi everybody, how are you going? I mean, really, how are you going? You can tell me in the comments. I'm Lucy, I'm mum to Ramona and Juno, and my kids have never been to school. Today I want to share 5 principles from the world of unschooling that I think could potentially really help you in this time of learning at home through the pandemic. I know that loads of you are having to do school at home because you've been sent stuff from school and that kind of thing. On that note, loads of people I know have just rung up their teachers and said this is causing a lot of stress, we don't want to do it, and their teachers have said don't do it. So if you're feeling that way, do make that phone call. It's worth it just to see if you could get off the hook. If you've done that, or if you're unwilling to do that, I think these 5 things could potentially help you just to embrace the new what-isness of this situation for you and your family. Now, unschooling is a bit of a beast. Like, there's no actual definition for it. There's a million different iterations of unschooling in the world. I personally love John Holt's definition. He's an educator who founded the modern unschooling movement, and he says that unschooling is essentially giving to the child as much freedom as the parents can bear. And I love that because it kind of puts the desire to give freedom and autonomy within the context of the whole family and within the context of the parents' own kind of like baggage and social context. But that's basically why unschooling looks so different from one home to the next. But I think that these 5 principles are ones that you will find in almost every unschooling home, and I'm happy to be corrected in the comments. Before we crack on, please do hit subscribe if you're new to my channel. This channel's been going for a month. There's loads of good videos, do check them out. And there's loads more coming, so I super want to make sure that you are seeing them as they come out. So that big red subscribe button. Okay, a couple of things to mention. A lot of people seem to think that unschooling is like a great big social experiment. And I would actually challenge it. I would say that actually the schooling system is the biggest social experiment that society has done in the centuries. In a way, unschooling is what most societies have done for like most of human history. The idea that humans simply learn by being in their families and being in their communities. So in a little bit of a sense, you've actually stepped out of the social experiment and into something that has deeper roots to how we naturally learn. But having said that, what we are doing right now, what you are possibly doing right now, even if you're not kind of sitting down and doing schooling, is not in any way homeschooling or unschooling. Our life right now is poles apart from how we usually live our life. Unschooling is all about supporting our children's learning and kind of opening doors on their interests, and that means waking up and going on visits to all sorts of different things and hanging out with friends and playing. What everybody around the world is doing right now is basically kind of pandemic schooling. We don't have the resources, the infrastructure, the network and connections that something like unschooling and homeschooling really depends on. So the first principle is a principle of trust. Unschooling parents simply trust that the child is their own guru. Nobody knows their mind, their body, their decision-making capabilities better than the child herself. And most unschooling parents I know are on a little bit of a journey with this, trying to trust increasingly more and more. And I think we're actually, when our child comes along, it's quite easy to sort of trust that they know what they're doing for lots of us. Like, we kind of do generally have an understanding that most children will be able to kind of cry when they're hungry and communicate that way. We trust that they're gonna pick up words simply by living in a talking society. We trust that they're gonna be able to take steps without really needing us, because we just trust their ability to bring to themselves everything they kind of need or ask for it. And then a kind of weird thing happens when they turn 5 and we suddenly go, no. Okay, you've done pretty well so far, but now the adults are going to take over. We're going to let you know what you need to know. And I think that unschooling parents just question that arbitrary time frame. We're like, hey, they've been doing quite well so far. Why don't we just, keep seeing how they can draw things to themselves when they need it. And once you start doing unschooling, this is something that shows itself to be true time and time again, that our children can be trusted to make really good decisions. When you let go, they are naturally hungry, they're thirsty for learning, they're curious, they're deeply motivated, and you can watch them learning all of the time. And that brings me to number 2, and that is that children are learning all of the time and will learn through anything available to them. So unschoolers don't believe that learning happens just in these set parts of the day or in set parameters or in a box. You alright? You showing me your haircut? Ah, great job!
Style it.
Oh, I love it. Go style it. Shut that door, please. Have you seen that? Have you seen the bag? Holy shit. Okay. Oh my. Okay. You reckon it, babe? The girls just cut Tim's hair. Oh boy. And what gets me, the funny thing about unschooling, is that actually people are unschooling all of the time. Like, once you leave formal education, you begin basically unschooling, and that is if you want to know something, you just go on a journey and find it out. So if you want to learn a new hobby, get on YouTube and learn how to play the ukulele or how to do crocheting. If you are, like me, an entrepreneur and you want to set up a new part of your business, you just learn how to do it, or you do a course to bring that learning to yourself. Even if you're a doctor and you come across a case that you've never seen before, you essentially go on an unschooling journey to get to the bottom of that patient's case and learn how to serve them. It's basically like this idea that humans are excellent at accessing the information that they need for what they want to learn. Which brings me to number 3, and that is this idea that the very best learning happens when you are self-motivated. There is a huge amount of literature that backs this up. Self-motivated learning is the swiftest and most long-term learning you can do. In fact, learning that isn't self-motivated very quickly fades away. And you can test this by asking yourself how much you remember from your school days. Personally, I can basically remember a cloud that's called a cumulus. That might not even be right. That's basically the only thing I can remember from school. I mean, I learned a huge amount about social relationships and surviving and all sorts of other things. My own daughter recently asked to learn to read, and it's been really funny for me spending some time with her on reading, because when the books that she's reading are interesting to her, she just picks up the words like vroom, they're just immediately in her head. And when the books that she's reading are very boring, she just can't remember any of the words. That really speaks to the fact that when you are self-motivated, you tend to be very joyful, and learning comes a lot easier. And a lot of people tend to think that their kids won't ever be self-motivated, but that's actually because I think a lot of parents bring baggage in around what they think, like related to the other point, that they think learning looks a certain way. But if you kind of let go of that and you just go, learning has so many different ways of looking, then you can see that your kid is actually learning all of the time, even when you're like, no, my kid's not motivated at all they like to do is play Minecraft. And unschoolers would say, well, Minecraft must be serving their learning needs in a huge way. And we'd look at what it is that they're learning through that. And this kind of leads me to the next one, which is a really huge one, and it's all about the brain's limbic system. So a lot of you will know that the amygdala is it's kind of like the station switcher in your brain for information. So information comes into your brain, and then the amygdala fires it off up to your kind of higher brain, which is the area of logic and information processing. It's where kind of like deep learning happens. Or it fires it down to your lower brain, which is where your fight, flight and freeze zone is. And when you're under stress, the amygdala fails to send the right information up to the learning part of the brain and instead fires it down to the stress zone. Things like sustained boredom, overwhelm at demand, feelings of isolation, fear of being wrong, general anxiety around what you're learning and not being excited about it. Those are all states that trigger the amygdala to basically send the info to the other place. And all of that makes sense, right? That's why we don't really remember very much from school, because in that kind of like very controlled, very stressful environment, the info isn't getting to the right place. And this one is a really crucial one to remember during a pandemic, because there's kind of like a low-level trauma happening for all of us, but I'd say particularly kids who are used to like the structure of school. And they'll be dealing with a lot of those feelings that will be sending the information down to the fight, flight or freeze zone. So that might mean that you're experiencing a lot of conflict with your kids, or they are looking lazy or unmotivated. And to me it really feels like there's an invitation there for parents to just go, we are gonna take off all of the stress here and just let our child learn just what they want to learn and do it joyfully and in a totally stress-free, entirely self-directed environment. Finally, there's loads and loads of information out there that says that the best person to facilitate a child's learning is somebody that loves them. Love and connection is fundamental to a child's learning journey. And I would say most homeschoolers get that. They understand that we don't have to outsource that learning facilitation, as long as we can be loving and supportive and help maintain that kind of stress-free environment. We can do this. We can be the best people to be there while our kids do this supernatural, super intuitive learning. Now, if you want to explore some more of these principles that I've mentioned, I want to recommend a few people that I love online who are writing about this stuff, and that is the brilliant blog Happiness Is Here. There is a mum to a bunch of siblings and writes a lot about unschooling. I also want to recommend Akila from Fair of the Free Child, who is an unschooler and talks a lot about child rights. There's also the brilliant Carol Black, who writes a lot about this stuff, but has also written this amazing long-form essay called 1,000 Rivers, and I read it about twice a year as a kind of like deep, motivating boost. I also want to recommend Ratius and also the brilliant Facebook page, I Am Unschooled, Yes I Can Write. I'm going to link to them all below. Super inspirational unschoolers there. Wherever you are in the world, much love to you, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Do let me know what videos you would like to see. The next video is a super good one. It's all about the underlying beliefs that actually stop us from throwing ourselves into this stuff. Don't forget to hit subscribe. If you found this helpful, do share it around. That would be super awesome. See you later.